record this. Okay, we have a very special guest with us today, and that is Rachel Gemara. She's one second. I have to make sure that everybody else is on. One second. It's okay. So Rachel Gemara is here with us, and she's I would say family friends. I'll give one sentence of background and why I had the privilege of calling her. And as you guys know, I grew up in Keren B'Yavne. My parents are on the call. My father was a Rebbe in Keren B'Yavne, and Rachel's parents were also part of the rabbinical staff in Keren B'Yavne. And just like my family, we moved to New York, to Washington Heights, and they moved on Shlichut to Toronto. So we have a very similar story. And our personal paths did not cross as much, but during this entire coronavirus, I'm speaking. I have like 54 people. How many people do you have there? How many people? Okay, guys. Okay. My wife just came into the room and she's like, there's like a whole bunch of people on the call and you're not on it. So there's there's another call happening right now with many other people. Okay. Okay, so tell them to log off and send out the email. One second. Mark, are you on the call here? Okay, he resent the link to everybody. Please tell them that it was sent out to everybody. Okay. Okay, sorry everybody. We're gonna restart again. So this is how our shul works. This is usually it's actually pretty flawless, but today is a little bit more bumpy. Okay, so there's another virtual meeting that's happening without any of us, but they're gonna be joining us as we move along. Okay, so anyways, without enough of me speaking. Without further ado, Rachel, can you please introduce yourself so that everyone could see? We really have a zchut here with us. We've heard so much about them. Angels in white, malachim, literally, people who are saving people's lives. And Rachel is one of those people. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, where you grew up, and how you got to this ward.
Sure. Okay. So like you said before, we both grew up in Keren B'Yavne. Then I moved to Toronto. And then after high school, I came back to Israel. I went to nursing school. I've been a nurse in oncology for 10 years. And then 2 months ago, I got a text message from the hospital saying that they need to open a corona unit because there's going to be corona patients in Israel. And we need to be prepared with, the hospital needs to be prepared for it because we're probably going to need to open something. And I sent a message back saying that I'm interested, and I didn't even tell my boss, or I didn't really believe that it was actually going to happen. And then the week after, I got a message saying, okay, like we're starting. This is when you're working, like just show up. And then we had a meeting and they just said, okay, we have no idea what's going to happen, how this is going to work, but we're just going to take it day by day and just start taking care of these patients. And I was really on the first staff. We were one unit. We had like the first week we had 10 patients. I think 3 weeks later, it grew to 110 on 6 different units. So wow. It really grew very quickly. And I was there from the beginning. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
This was like voluntary, where you chose to be a part of this ward, which was like unknown and dangerous territory, or this was something that you were chosen for?
No, it's all volunteer. They said, they said this is a whole new unit. We don't have staff, so we're going to have to pull staff from every other department. And we need everything: nurses, doctors, cleaners, like social workers, physiotherapists, everything. And everybody volunteered. Like it was, no, they didn't force anyone to do it. And everybody wanted to do it. Like everybody that I worked with chose to be there.
Wow. So what made you choose to be there? Because this is an unknown pandemic. Obviously, it's very serious. We've heard of different medical staff, maybe even being infected by it, but yet you volunteered to join this unknown. I'm sure it was scary for your parents. I'm sure it was scary for you. Like, what made you do it? What were the thoughts going through your mind when you're like, you know what, I'm going in for this?
I really saw this as a national calling, and I feel like there's a world crisis, a global crisis happening, and it's in our country. And I feel like I'm in a profession where they need me, and they need my contribution. So I really wanted, that I knew it was going to be a big challenge, but I just thought it was really important. And when we're called out for something to help other people, to help our country, then we have to do it.
Wow,
Or I
wow.
wanted to do it. And
Wow, amazing, amazing, really inspirational. And I know that in Shaarei Tzedek, they were one of the first units here in Israel, like you said, and it jumped really, really quickly from 10 patients to a few hundred patients. Like,
Mhm.
I understood that this is like a special unit. Like, could you explain to us a little bit more, like what made this unit special or how they even built it? You were there from the beginning, from day one of this outbreak. So just like now, as we're slowly exiting from it, I think it'll be interesting I know it's interesting for me. I'm sure it'll be interesting for everyone here to hear like a little bit about it, like what went on there. How do they build it? What was special about it?
Yeah, it really is. I was kind of impressed by how um, the hospital just within a few days, even the first few days that we were there, they were still building like the infrastructure and building, the way it has to be built, and the security around it, and how they tried to make it like disconnected from the hospital so that it doesn't infect the other patients that are there, and making it, the entrances and all the logistics and engineering was, I found it super impressive. And they were really just, I was there on a night shift, and they were there with us, like building it as we're working. And it kind of felt like we're in a war, and we're just doing it as we're going along. But I think really everybody, it's not just the medical staff, but also the part of this mission, and helped get everything on its way so quickly.
Wow, wow, amazing. And it's like, so this war, just to give us a picture of what goes on inside, I think we're all curious to understand how it goes. On the one hand, you're a nurse, you can't be all suited up in, just in all the time. And then you have the patients on the inside. How is the communication between the nurses and the patients? How do you take care of one another? Like, just fill us into how it actually worked when it's such an unknown virus and pandemic.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly, in many ways, it does kind of look like a regular unit. The only thing that is different, there's the beds, everything is more or less the same, like a regular hospital unit, except that the staff isn't there constantly all the time. The way that it works now is that we have like a headquarters. We call it the Hamal, like Keter Milchama, which is where we have all the monitoring screens, and we have screens like CCTV that shows us what's going on inside the unit, so we can always keep an eye on the patients. And they're also connected to different monitors so that we can see their vital signs from outside. And just so that we're able to control, it's kind of like the control room where we're able to see everything from the outside, because we can't be inside for 12 hours inside the unit like we normally would, because it's too much of a high risk of exposure to the virus. So we have to try to do as much as we can from outside. And that's where we prepare the medication. That's where we kind of see what's going on with the patients from the outside. And when we need to go in, we already kind of know what, we have the certain tasks that we need to do. And then we have to get into all the protective gear. And then we just go in. We can only go in for 2 hours at a time. So we usually switch. We have a rotation of staff so that there's always someone, at least one person in there all the time. And it's just a different way of working. But logistically, we do try to do as much as possible from the outside, just so that, we're not constantly exposed to the same air as all the patients.
Wow, wow. So you're running 12-hour shifts, and then 2 hours at least 2 hours of them in rotation, you're gearing up and you're going inside to actually deal with the people like in person, but all the other hours your eyes are on them through the
Yeah.
monitor screens.
Yeah, I could be just as busy when I'm outside than when I'm in. Just look like speaking to the patients. They all have phones, so we communicate with them regularly, and I'm talking to them, seeing what needs to be done. And yeah, it definitely took a long time to get used to working this way, but now it's very much second nature.
Wow, wow, unbelievable. So you've spent hundreds of hours in the last month, like in this unit, just helping people. Unbelievable, unbelievable. A real inspiration. With your permission, I asked Rachel to send me a few pictures, and I wanna just show you a picture of what it looked like. Um, Let me try to see if I could get it. 1 second. Okay. These are pictures of Rachel. This is, I understand. Are you guys able to see this? I think so. This is Rachel right
Yeah.
before the Seder. This is her about to walk in, and it says Achot, a nurse, with Rachel Gemara at the end, like her name. This is in the control center. I understand speaking. I'll let you explain. I'm assuming this is speaking to different patients. And this is what it looks like. This is why they're called the angels in white, because they have to wear all white to go in and actually meet the people face to face. And this picture I found really fascinating. Could you explain to me a little bit about this picture? I see you're fully suited up, but you have like a picture of yourself on the chest with your name.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's not even the hospital that started that project. There was this guy in Israel that his girlfriend is a medical student. He works in high tech, and she sort of explained to him this issue about medical staff that were not recognizable. So then he had an idea to print stickers with our a picture of us so that the patients can see who's taking care of them, because you can see that without it you really can't tell who's who. And it's honestly like it's the patients love it. They think they're smiling every time they see it, and they think it really is so nice. But it's also just another example of like how Israelis are very good at if there's an issue, they're going to call someone that they know. And he works in high tech, has all these connections with HP and different printing companies, so he was able to just work out how to do it. And it was all done voluntarily. Like, they give it to us for free, and they did it in every hospital in Israel. So I thought that was also very, very impressive and very cool. Like, we're very appreciative of that.
Wow. So every hospital in Israel, like that became the norm, that the staff has like a picture on their chest.
Yeah, every yeah, from what I understood, like I saw it in Asuta and Sheba. Schneider had it. Like, basically any hospital that wanted it got it.
Wow, wow, really amazing, because a big part of this is not just, especially because there is no official medical treatment now. It's just like trying to preserve life. So it's really about the human relationship,
Yeah,
to give them the inspiration. And that was really on you and your team and like all your colleagues.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's super fascinating, because this is obviously the first time that the medical world is dealing with this. And I think in a certain way, this my understanding is that a lot fell on the nursing and on the support staff even more than on the medical staff. Obviously the medical staff is there to do the big doctors. There's nothing that they could do. It's the big unknown.
Right. Yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, they still do quite a lot, but I definitely feel like in all my experience as a nurse, this is the first time that I really see staff. We're really working together and just helping each other out. Like, um, you know, it's true. There's not, they saw a lot of the medication. It doesn't really make a difference with the prognosis. What does make a difference is putting patients on their stomach, like in a prone position, and that can really help with their breathing. So, I have doctors that, that's kind of even like changing a patient's position. That's usually a nurse's job or the orderlies. But like the doctors will now that, they come in and they help me do that, you know what I mean? Which is something that wouldn't have happened otherwise, but they just want to, they've kind of also become nurses a little bit, and they've become, we've all kind of taken on other roles just as this whole thing is going on.
Wow, amazing. So I want to go into something a little bit more personal that I saw you wrote about. And if anyone has Facebook, I recommend you go into Rachel Gemara's Facebook page just to read her posts that are full of realness, I would say, very, very real. And that's what really got me to think to contact you and so that we could hear your stories in person. So you were there because we know that the first casualty of coronavirus, of COVID-19 in Israel was in Shaarei Tzedek Hospital. Aryeh Evan was a Holocaust survivor who's 88 years old. This, we know this from the news, and you were there. It was under your watch. Can you share with us what was that like?
Sure. So he arrived on a Sunday night, and he was really the first difficult patient that we had in our unit. Before that, everyone was, walking around, didn't really need oxygen. They just had the virus, but they were pretty independent. They had a few symptoms. They were coughing, they had chest pain, but fever, obviously, but they weren't, like needed constant, hospitalization type of care. And then Aryeh Evan, was 88 years old. He got infected in an old age home in Israel. He was really the first difficult patient that we had. And he had a lot of other, very rich medical history. So we kind of knew that, with all the health risks that we knew about at the time, like we knew that we really have to keep an eye on him. And there's a really good chance that the virus is going to overtake his condition. So we were obviously super concerned, and we really at that point, that's when we really felt like we started working our hardest, because we obviously had to go in way more often. He needed constant care. He's used to having a caretaker with him, and because she's not, no family, no caretakers can be with these patients. They have to be isolated on their own, because only people that have the virus can be inside the unit, which is obviously another very huge challenge for us and for the patients, obviously. And it was obviously very difficult just having to take care of him, and we really did our best. And one of the things that I didn't expect to see, and it really touched my heart, and that's really when I started writing about it on Facebook, is seeing how, the other patients that were there, even though they didn't know him, they didn't know each other, they really took it on themselves to, take care, to be there and take care of him and do whatever they can. They were giving him water, and they were helping him, and they were always visiting him, and they really wanted him to feel like he's not alone, because they knew how difficult it must be for him. And they also cared about the staff. They didn't want us to have to go in if it was something that they can do. So, they helped him eat, they gave him water, they covered him with a blanket, they anything that he needed, they made sure to be there. And then unfortunately his condition did get worse, and it got to a point where, there wasn't really anything medically to do. And on Friday night, the patients got together, they set up a table in the middle of the machlaka to have Friday night dinner together. And he was in his room in his bed. He obviously couldn't go down. And then he started not feeling well. And then the monitor that he was connected to started beeping. He had like a heart arrhythmia. And the patients rushed in to be next to him, and they call, like, we can obviously see what was going on. So the staff that I was with, they were already preparing to go inside to see what was going on. And then by the time they got there, he passed away. And the patients that were there, the people that were there next to him, they saw that he's taking his last breath, and they said Shema Yisrael with him, and they were really comforting him, and they were really there in the last moments of his life. And I was watching the whole thing from the screen, outside, and obviously I was like tearing up. I was very, very emotional, but everything just felt so surreal. Having, this whole situation is so bizarre, just having to see someone pass away on a screen, my patient, and having the other patients that are there say Shema Yisrael with him. And, then they were saying Tehillim, and while the staff were there, it was such a surreal, emotional situation. Also, corona death in Israel, which is a huge deal. It was very overwhelming, but obviously also a huge blessing to know that the patients were, that, he didn't die alone, and he had people that cared about him with him there. And to me, that is a very big source of comfort.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, it seems that like everyone really galvanized over here. I mean, that is obviously a very powerful experience that you must have experienced. But, I mean, the way you're describing it, what I'm now understanding is that inside the ward, the patients could interact with one another. And
Correct.
they're there for one another. Did you see any, like, obviously Israel, only like Israel could be, Mike Amcha Yisrael, that we could be so diverse, but yet we are so there, so there for one another. Like, did you see any stories like that? I mean, here is obviously one of them. They're rushing over to a person they don't know, and they're saying Shema with him.
Yeah, it's honestly like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But when we first started working there, we didn't have to go in as much because they were all kind of we could do a lot of things from outside. I'm constantly speaking with them. I'm constantly in touch with them. Anything that needs to be done. But at a point that they were all quite young. We taught them how to take their own blood pressure, how to take their temperature. So they were doing it on their own. And it even got to a point where they were doing it to the patients that needed help. They were just taking care of themselves. And it's really, really amazing. There was these two young women there, like in their early 30s, and that were sick, and they kind of, they were just like managing the entire unit on their own. We laughed that we were kind of like on this Big Brother reality show that we're just watching everything on the screens like happening. And yeah, it was pretty funny, and they knew that we could see them also. But they just they set up table. They were cleaning everything. They set up the table for meals and put out the food and helped anyone that needed help. And they taking blood pressure for everyone. It was very cool and really nice. And it was these two girls that they just took it on themselves to manage everything. And it even got, this was in Israel now, because there's so many patients, they not everyone can be in the hospital. Obviously not everybody needs to, so they go to the hotel. We were there before the hotel was even an option. And then they were really just, these two girls were just managing everything for everyone. And then it got to a point where we had to, we told them, okay, the Misrad Habriut, is opening these hotels for patients that can go there. So you guys are candidates. So, we want to move you there. And it's obviously a better option. You get your own hotel room. It's a lot more comfortable. You're not in a hospital with other people. Of these other patients that need our help, like, how are you guys going to manage without us? Like they prefer to stay in the hospital because they wanted to help. They wanted to like help out, which was like, for me, I just thought it was amazing. Like, it was really like, it honestly like really touched my heart. And it's in a way we're happy that there is this option for the hotel. It also like means we need to go in more often. But this is just part of things that are changing constantly for us. But that was definitely something that was really amazing. After a while, once there was more patients, they were able, and more men, they were able to start a minyan. And it was like, and they were just so happy there was finally 10 men. And also they haven't been able to go to shul in weeks. So it didn't matter if you're Ashkenazi, Sephardi, any like Hasidut, whatever it was, they just dove in together and just made it work. And, obviously they're helping each other put on tefillin to the patients that need help. And, they were just, you could really see that the tefillot and the davening, those were the things that really kept them together and really gave them a lot of strength, because these were things that, if they were isolated at home, they wouldn't have. So the fact that they were in a hospital, this was one of the things that really gave them a lot of strength.
Wow. So in a certain way, over Pesach, they were probably the only minyan that was operational in the whole country, because everyone was on total lockdown.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
for,
So those ladies stayed in the hospital? They didn't go to the hotel?
they stayed for a few days, but after a while, the hospital said to them, like, we sort of like, we want you guys to stay, but also we need the beds for patients that really need them. And yeah, they did go to the hotel eventually, but and then and then they were replaced by patients that then we trained them how to help us out or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was they stayed a few days later than they needed to, which I just to help us, which I thought was incredible.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. How many patients went through that? You said that you guys started as the first ward called Keter Alef, like the
Yeah,
first crown. First of all,
right.
why do you guys call it Keter? What was the thing behind
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, Corona is Keter in Latin or Spanish because the virus looks like has a crown kind of shape. So they just translate it to Keter. But also, I think it has a double meaning that Keter is, Keter Malchut, or, kind of like the top. I don't want to say like we're the top of the hospital, but it's definitely, we're definitely, like it's because maybe it's something unique. We're like the crown, I guess. But I don't want to call that myself, but someone else called it, so maybe I'm allowed to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you were in it and you're definitely a part of it. And it started right around Purim, which is like
Right. Before Purim, it was like the week before Purim.
the week before Purim. Amazing. And that's the week of, I see you and I hear your stories and I'm like, Bizchut Nashim Tzidkaniyot Nigalu Israel. The Geula comes because of Nashim Tzidkaniyot. And it started right before Purim, where we know Esther was the Keter Melucha. And now,
Right.
Bizchus you, it's like, Vitnu Lecha Keter Melucha. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Right. It's also a nurse said also when Esther's called up for something, she says something like "Im lo le'et hazeh nikrat la malchut," or what I mean, like. So I also feel it in that way, like maybe we were if we didn't volunteer, someone else would have done it, but like we got the opportunity to be the first one to be called up for it, so which is also something special.
Wow,
Like,
wow.
yeah, ויודעים לא לעת הזה נקראת למלכות.
Right, right. Amazing, amazing for sure. So how many patients went through? Because you said you guys were Keter Aleph, but then it was Keter Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. They opened up 6 different wards in Shaarei Tzedek. How many people went just here in Yerushalayim in Shaarei Tzedek through the hospital?
That's a good question. I'm sure I mean, we had 110 beds and they were all full at one point. So I'm sure that it's probably like maybe like 1,000. I don't know. But like everybody, we were definitely the number one in Israel, for sure in Jerusalem, but in Israel as well. We were in the top 3 of, the number of patients that we were taking care of.
Wow, amazing, amazing. This is it's just like truly amazing to see, and to hear your story and to see the passion in your eyes, how you're saying it, is just something that I think resonates with so many people. And now you told me that officially they're closing. Baruch Hashem, we were able to turn the tide here in Israel, and they've started to close the wards. What's the
Right.
current status right now in the hospital?
Right. Okay, so I just worked last night, so I'm updated. But last night I'm in Keter Gimel. It's the last remaining unit, except for the ICU, which is obviously much less. But last night Keter Gimel, which is the last unit, had 24 patients, and the ICU has 5 or 6. So also a lot less. But we're definitely obviously seeing the numbers go down significantly from 110 to only 24. Is huge. So we hope that the trend continues, and we can all go back to where we were before.
Right. Okay. So as we're talking about this shift happening, again, I don't have it. I'm not able to share this. I wanted to share this with everyone to see it, just like I shared with you the pictures. but Rachel shared a video. I'm assuming it's only one of many different cases where people came back, and even though they weren't able to come close to you because you're a nurse that deals, in the corona unit, but patients that came back to say thank you. Could you share with us, for me, just seeing that video of somebody through a glass coming to say thank you for you saving his life, maybe share with us that story of how you saved his life, or just the different stories of patients coming back to say thank you, because we all want to say thank you and we weren't even there. I can only imagine that they want to say thank you when you were there every day watching out for them.
Yeah. So this story kind of starts about a month ago. We were kind of at the peak of, the very difficult patients, when we were really working very, very hard. And one of the things the virus does is that it looks, people that look like they're breathing quite normally, within seconds they can go down like this. Like you check their oxygen and it's, you see that it's 60 or 70 when it's really supposed to be between 90 and 100. And even though they look like they could be breathing well, within seconds it could go down very, very drastically and quickly. And that's one of the biggest dangers or health challenges with this virus. And I was in the unit in the middle of the night, just doing regular nurse things, checking on patients, medications, whatever. And I was there by myself. We there's only 2 nurses for 20 patients, so we were rotating on and off. Like we don't need 2 nurses there at a time. So I'm in there. The doctors are not there. It's just me. And I had a patient. He was quite new, and he was quite young. Also, he was 51. He definitely wasn't, your classic like old age home type of patient. So he just, happened. He was considered quite young, and he had difficulty breathing. He was on oxygen, but like just the so very minimal. And he needed help. He wanted to go to the bathroom. He asked me to help him. So I just helped him up, helped him sit down. And all of a sudden he started getting super dizzy, and his eyes rolled back and he completely lost consciousness right in front of me. And I could see that he wasn't even breathing just because his oxygen levels were so low. And obviously I went into full panic mode. I'm by myself. And the staff outside could see that I was, something was going on. So I was in communication with them, but I'm still by myself. And I just went into, just also very, very scared, but tried to remember, what I need to do. And I brought, an oxygen mask to connect him to, so he could get the maximum amount of oxygen, just doing things that I knew how to do, hoping that it would help. But I was obviously just really, scared, and being by yourself also, like not, knowing that everything is in your hands is also very, very scary. And thank God, like he just needed the extra oxygen to bring him back to consciousness. And I was talking to the doctor, and he was like telling me what to do, check his pulse, check his oxygen. And he's telling me like tinshami. So I'm thinking like he's telling like I'm like telling the patient like tinsham, and like the doctor's like no, I meant you, like you need to breathe also, like you also need to take care of yourself, like because he could see that I was also like very, very panicked, and he didn't want me to have to, like for me to all of a sudden have some sort of medical issue, which with all the protective gear, it's very easy to faint as well. But yeah, so thank God he recovered from that incident, but he really needed more help, so or more medical attention. So we moved him to the ICU after that, where he was there for a couple of weeks. And also, before, he wasn't intubated in the end, but he needed really constant care. And but he was, he even after that, he had a few other incidents where he fainted and he fell and he hurt his head. He had, he really went through a very long process. But thank God he did recover. And a week after that, I was always kind of keeping an eye on him, seeing how he's doing. And then I found out that I was working, and I found out that he was going home. And then I was like, oh wow, like that's crazy. Like I'd love to see him like before he goes. And then his niece, who's also a student nurse in the hospital, she said, no, he was like, he wants to see you also. And I was like, whoa, like he remembers who I am. Like I didn't even, I thought like maybe he wasn't sure who I was just because he was very sick. And he did remember me, and he remembered that I was there when he went through that incident. And yeah, like as he was walking out, he walked by the Hamal, where there's a glass door that divides between us and the patients. And you know, we met there, and he spoke to me, and we spoke about what happened, and he just said thank you. You know, like, you know, he was just very grateful that I was there when I was. And yeah, and that was obviously every challenge, everything hard thing that we had to go through until that, it makes it worth it just for that moment.
Wow, wow. I didn't realize when I wrote the title Angel in White that it was real. You're a real shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a real angel to save a life. Kol hamatzil nefesh achat miYisrael. Anyone who saves one life has saved really an entire world. And it's really it's emotional just hearing about it. And you know, and you've been here. I want to end off with maybe one last question, because you've taken your time to speak to us, and I know that now a lot of people want to speak to you because we could see why. You're a very real person and easy to talk to. But what is your takeaway? I mean, it's not over yet. I know you just ran a full 12-hour shift all night, and you were up all night helping people, and we're already talking about, you know, the takeaway and the next step, and thinking about it, bizchut you, and because of people like you, we're able to even think about the next stage. And maybe it's inappropriate to ask it, but I still want to ask you, like, what is your takeaway from this entire time period? Something that you learned, something that you think we should take away as a community and as people who are listening to you from your experience.
Sure.
Sorry for
Yeah.
putting you on the spot like that.
No, I mean, there's so many things that, you know, going on in my head, but I think even just the simple things, just seeing how, you know, the patients really, it's really just strengthened in me and showed me the faith in Am Yisrael, and how we really, you know, when we see one person who's going through struggling, we all feel it, and we all want to help each other out through these tough times. And even seeing people who were sick themselves helping out patients who are even more sick than them, you know, is really just very inspiring, and something that we can all see on our own. And another thing that I felt, you know, a lot of people in the beginning, when I went into this, a lot of the nurses that I was working with, they're like, you know, why do you, like, are you sure you really want to do this? Like, you're putting yourself at risk. Like, is it really necessary? Like, you know, why would you want to have to go put yourself through this when you know how hard it's going to be? But I really felt like if you jump into something that you know is important and that you really believe, you go in with your full emunah and belief in Hashem, and Hashem's going to help you get through it, and that's when you're really going to see you know, miracles, and see. And if we jump into the water, kind of like like Hashem's going to help us through it, and He's going to split the sea, and He's going to get us through it. But we have to do the first move, and we have to do whatever we can with belief in Hashem to we have to do the first step, and then Hashem's going to get us through it.
Wow, wow, wow. You're a tremendous inspiration and a role model for many young ladies around the world, and definitely a role model for us and an inspiration for us. And just hearing your story has been so phenomenal. I want to, if anybody wants to write a thank you or a question, you could write it in the chat down below. But before we even do that, I would like to ask, you could take it off of speaker view and go back to the gallery view in the top corner, but I would like to take everybody off of mute for a second. And I think this young lady, Rachel Gemara, deserves a standing ovation from all of us. So I'm going to take us all off of mute for 1 second, just so we could give her her well-deserved standing ovation.
Kavod, color kavod. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Toda. You're wonderful.
Yeah, really amazing. Um, I'm going to put us still on mute for 1 second, because I want to say thank you to Rachel. If you want to write thank yous, you could write it in the chat down below. If you have any specific questions, you could write them as well. Maybe we'll field 1 or 2 questions. I do want to say thank you to Rachel's parents that are here online somewhere. I don't know where. Liana, we had over 80 people on here. Arav Shlomo Gemara and Rabbanit Ofra Gemara. They should have a lot of nachat from you. I think I see, I'm going to highlight them. I think they're here. I think parents deserve big rounds of I'm going to highlight. I see Arav Shlomo is here. I want to say, שיהיה לכם הרבה הרבה, amazing. שיהיה לכם הרבה הרבה נחת. You guys should have tremendous amount of nachas from raising such a special young lady, a special girl. Earlier when we started, it was, I don't see her here, but your mother is online also. And I want to give you both a bracha that you should have a lot of nachat from all of your kids. And I could say a disclaimer right now. My first best friend in Keren B'Yavne was Netanel Gemara. Zachur Latov. He lives here now in Beit Shemesh, and we were best friends growing up in the same, we were both the rabbi's children in Keren B'Yavne, and that's why we had this relationship, and I felt very comfortable reaching out to this amazing young lady, Rachel. And I want to say thank you to you for sharing this with us, for sharing your story with us. It was a real inspiration. So thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take, you're getting a lot of kol hakavods down in the chats and in the comments. I'm gonna take us all off of speaker so you guys could say thank you to Rachel personally. And with this, I would like to say thank you and like to close this meeting. And you're really inspiring. And thank you for taking the time after going all night last night. And you still took the time to speak with us. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Toda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Angel.
I liked it. Thank you.
It was a privilege to hear you.
Great on it.
Thank you for all you've done.
Very much.
Yeah.